Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into Donald Trump's surprising policy pivot. We're talking cryptocurrency. You provided some fascinating articles about this. And let me tell you, the guy who once tweeted that Bitcoin was thin air is now envisioning a whole new financial landscape for the U.S.
It's a real head-scratcher, isn't it? During his presidency, Trump definitely seemed wary of crypto. He even suggested the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, the ones who oversee Wall Street, should be cracking down harder on the crypto market. But fast forward to his 2024 campaign, and he's suddenly pushing for the U.S. to become a crypto superpower. It begs the question, what happened?
Right, talk about a plot twist. So to understand this crypto conversion, we need to go back a bit.
Right.
What exactly was Trump's stance on crypto a few years ago?
Well, between 2019 and 2021, Trump was pretty openly skeptical. He called cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin a disaster waiting to happen, expressing concerns that they could threaten the U.S. dollar's position as the world's leading reserve currency.
Okay, so protecting the dollar's dominance was priority number one. But wasn't that around the time a lot of people were just starting to hear about Bitcoin? Maybe he was still wrapping his head around it like many of us were.
That's certainly possible. But remember, the skepticism didn't stop at words. He also suggested the SEC should be tougher on crypto regulations, which, as you can imagine, didn't sit well with many crypto enthusiasts.
So fast forward to today, what's changed? Why the sudden embrace of all things crypto?
It's a great question, and there are a few potential explanations we can unpack. One theory is that it's a strategic move to appeal to a younger, more tech-savvy voter base. After all, crypto has become increasingly mainstream, especially among millennials and Gen Z.
Okay, that tracks. It's like trying to win over the younger generation by showing you understand their interests. Hey, I'm hip. I get Bitcoin.
Exactly. But it goes beyond just appealing to a demographic. Remember, Trump has always positioned himself as a disruptor, someone who challenges the status quo. And in the world of finance, what could be more disruptive than cryptocurrency?
It's true. He does love a good shakeup. So less about chasing the youth vote, more about disrupting the establishment.
Potentially both, but here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just talk with Trump. He's laid out some pretty concrete policy proposals on how he'd transform the U.S. into a crypto haven.
All right, let's get into the specifics. What's on the table?
Well, one of his most talked about proposals is replacing the current SEC chair, Gary Gensler, with someone more favorable towards cryptocurrencies. Gensler, as you know, has taken a pretty tough stance on crypto regulations, much to the chagrin of the crypto community.
Right, they haven't exactly been best buddies. So a new sheriff in town who's a little softer on crypto, that seems like a pretty clear signal. But what would that actually mean for the average person?
That's a key question. On the one hand, less stringent regulations could foster innovation and attract more investment to the U.S. crypto market. Think Silicon Valley, but for crypto.
A crypto valley, if you will. I like the sound of that. But I imagine not everyone's thrilled about this idea. What are the concerns?
You're right, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Critics argue that loosening regulations could lead to more scams and fraud, which have plagued the crypto world in the past. There's also the concern that it could destabilize traditional financial markets, if not handled carefully.
So that's a bit of a tightrope walk, trying to foster innovation without letting things run wild.
It's a classic dilemma, isn't it? But hold on. Replacing the SEC chair is just one piece of the puzzle. What else is Trump proposing?
This is where things get really interesting. Trump wants to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve within the Federal Reserve.
Wait, hold up. Like Fort Knox, but for Bitcoin? Is that even possible?
It's certainly a bold idea. You see, right now, the Federal Reserve holds large amounts of gold as part of its national reserves. Trump's proposal would essentially treat Bitcoin in the same way as a store of value. So instead of gold bars, we're talking digital wallets filled with Bitcoin. But isn't that incredibly risky? I mean, Bitcoin is notorious for its price swings. 1 minute it's up, the next it's down. That doesn't exactly scream stable government asset.
You've hit on one of the most contentious points of this proposal. Critics argue that it's simply too volatile. Imagine the U.S. government pouring billions into Bitcoin, only to see its value plummet the next day. It could throw the entire financial system into disarray.
That's a risk I don't think anyone wants to take.
Yeah.
But what do the proponents of this Bitcoin reserve idea say? What's their counterargument?
They argue that government involvement could actually help stabilize the crypto market. The logic is that if a powerful entity like the U.S. government backs Bitcoin, it lends legitimacy and could reduce those wild price fluctuations.
Interesting. So it's almost like they're saying that right now Bitcoin is like a ship tossed around on a stormy sea.
Yeah.
But if the U.S. government steps in, it's like anchoring that ship, making it less susceptible to every wave that comes along.
That's a great analogy. Now, whether you buy into that logic or not is another story, but it's certainly a fascinating debate. And it really underscores the potential impact of Trump's crypto proposals. We're not just talking about tinkering around the edges of the financial system here. This is about potentially reshaping the very foundation of how we think about money and value.
It's like we're on the verge of a financial revolution, and no one knows quite what the outcome will be. Okay, so we've got a potential shakeup at the SEC and a Bitcoin reserve on the horizon. Anything else our listeners should know about? What's the third major policy proposal?
Well, this one might surprise you. Despite his newfound enthusiasm for Bitcoin, Trump has publicly opposed the Federal Reserve's exploration of a central bank digital currency, or CBDC.
Hold on, back up a second. I thought we were all in on digital currencies now. Why is he against a digital dollar if he's so gung-ho about crypto?
It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Here's the thing. A CBDC is essentially a digital version of the US dollar issued and controlled by the government.
Okay, so instead of carrying around physical dollars, we'd have digital dollars in our digital wallets. Sounds pretty similar to what we were just talking about with Bitcoin.
Not quite, and that's the crux of the issue. You see, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin are decentralized. That means they aren't controlled by any single entity like a government or a bank.
So it's like the Wild West of currencies. Everyone's on a level playing field. No central authority calling the shots.
Exactly, and that's a big part of the appeal for many crypto enthusiasts. They see it as a way to break free from the traditional financial system.
But wouldn't a digital dollar, a CBDC, do the same thing? I mean, wouldn't it modernize our financial system and make transactions smoother?
It could, and that's why many governments around the world are exploring CBDCs. They see it as a way to make their financial systems more efficient, track transactions more easily, and potentially even extend financial services to people who don't have bank accounts.
So what's the problem? Why is Trump against it?
He and other critics worry that a CBDC could give the government too much control over people's money. Imagine a world where the government could track every single purchase you make or even freeze your assets with the click of a button.
Okay, that does sound a bit Big Brother-ish. And I guess if you're a fan of the whole decentralization thing, having the government control the digital dollar kind of defeats the purpose.
Precisely. It goes against the very ethos of cryptocurrency. So you can see why this is a sticking point for Trump and many in the crypto community. They see a CBDC as a threat to the freedom and autonomy that crypto represents.
So it's like a digital tug-of-war with the government on one side and crypto enthusiasts on the other. But where does that leave us, the average citizens caught in the middle? This all sounds like a recipe for some serious financial whiplash.
You're not wrong to be concerned. The truth is, no one knows for sure what the future holds. But that's what makes this such a fascinating topic to dive into. We're standing at a crossroads in financial history. The decisions made in the next few years by leaders like Trump will have ripple effects for decades to come.
It's almost like we're watching a game of financial chess unfold in real time, and the stakes couldn't be higher. So let's bring it back to our listener who might be thinking, okay, that's a lot to process. What does this all mean for me?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Well, for one, it underscores the importance of financial literacy, especially in the age of digital assets. The more you understand about these technologies, the better equipped you'll be to navigate these changing tides.
So it's not just about whether you're Team Bitcoin or Team Digital Dollar. It's about understanding the forces at play and how they might affect your own financial future. It's about taking control of your financial destiny.
Exactly. And that starts with asking questions, being critical of the information you consume, and perhaps most importantly, diversifying your portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, whether that's Bitcoin, the US dollar, or anything else.
That's some solid advice right there. But let's zoom out for a second. We've been focusing on the US, but this is a global story, right? What are other countries doing in this whole crypto CBDC arena?
You're absolutely right. This is a global phenomenon. China, for example, is already miles ahead in developing its own CBDC, the digital yuan.
So while we're debating the merits of a digital dollar, China's already out there testing the waters.
Precisely. And that has significant geopolitical implications. If the U.S. drags its feet, it risks falling behind in the race to shape the future of global finance.
Which, knowing how much emphasis is placed on being a global leader, I'm guessing isn't something the U.S. wants to do. But let's play devil's advocate for a moment.
Yeah.
Let's say Trump wins, implements all these policies. What's the best case scenario? What does a crypto-powered U.S. look like?
In a best-case scenario, it could position the U.S. as the epicenter of the global crypto market. Imagine a new wave of innovation and investment flooding into the U.S., creating jobs and boosting the economy.
So Silicon Valley 2.0, but with Bitcoin miners instead of app developers?
Exactly. And with that comes the potential for increased financial inclusion. Cryptocurrencies could provide access to financial services for millions of Americans who are currently unbanked.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. But we've got to address the elephant in the room. What about the risks? What could go wrong?
Well, for starters, there's no guarantee that embracing crypto will automatically make the U.S. the global leader. Other countries are already making significant strides, and the crypto landscape is constantly evolving.
So it's not a guaranteed win, even if everything goes according to plan. What else?
Then there's the issue of volatility. As we discussed earlier, cryptocurrencies are notoriously unpredictable. A sudden price crash could wipe out the savings of everyday Americans who jumped on the crypto bandwagon.
And if the U.S. government has poured billions into a Bitcoin reserve, that could spell disaster for the entire economy.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the potential for fraud and scams. Loosening regulations might foster innovation, but it could also open the floodgates for bad actors looking to take advantage of unsuspecting investors.
So it's a bit of a high-risk, high-reward scenario. A lot to unpack there. But even with all the uncertainties, there's a sense that we're on the cusp of something truly transformative, something that could fundamentally reshape how we think about money, finance, and even power itself. But I'm curious, with all your expertise, what aspect of this whole crypto situation do you find the most intriguing?
That's a great question. I think what fascinates me the most is how this challenges the traditional power dynamics of the global financial system. For centuries, governments and central banks have held a monopoly on money. Now with cryptocurrencies, we're seeing a shift towards decentralization, towards giving individuals more control over their own finances.
It's like the Wild West all over again, but instead of cowboys and saloons, it's coders and digital wallets. But in this Wild West, the stakes are incredibly high. We're talking about the future of money, the future of the global economy, even the future of power itself.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so crucial for everyone to be informed and engaged in this conversation. Because whether we realize it or not, we're all players in this unfolding drama.
Yeah, it's like we're witnessing the Wild West, but with ones and zeros instead of horses and tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. The stakes are astronomically high. This isn't just about some new tech gadget. This is about potentially upending the global financial order as we know it.
Exactly. And it's not just about Bitcoin or Trump for that matter. It's bigger than that. It's about understanding the forces at play, the potential benefits, and the very real risks. This technology, it's like opening Pandora's box. We
Yeah.
can't just stuff it back in. We have to learn how to navigate this new reality.
So true. And that's what we've tried to do today, unpack this complex issue and give our listeners some food for thought. As we wrap up this deep dive, is there any final word of wisdom you'd like to leave our listeners with? What's the one thing you hope they'll take away from this conversation?
I think the most important thing is to stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to challenge your assumptions about money and finance. The future is unwritten, and the decisions we make today will determine what that future looks like.
Wise words. And on that note, I think it's time for us to sign off. It's been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Trump, crypto, and the future of finance. To our listeners, thanks for joining us on this journey. Remember, knowledge is power, so stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, keep diving deeper.